I can't wait to see one of those street ball games.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily fantasy basketball podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and I am the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me as always on Twitter at redrock_bball. Today's show, we're looking at the start of NBA free agency. If you are watching this on a video, no, this isn't a hostage video. This is me in my hotel room in San Francisco. So the show is going to be a little bit different. Let's hope that everything works according to plan, working off a different computer, different setup. So hopefully everything is okay here as we look back at the start of 2019 NBA free agency. Michael Bolton, he's made the trip with me.
Let's get to it.
All right, let's get to it indeed. Let's look at trying to have a look. Now, I didn't want to just go through every signing individually. More looking at every team, who's in, who's out, and what sort of impact that will have. So we'll do that, cover it, and then I'll be back later in the week to have a look more at Utah and Sacramento Summer League and the rest of free agency before we head into Vegas next week. As I said, currently in San Francisco, about to spend my last day there today. So get this one out for you, and then go and enjoy the city. Let's start with the Atlanta Hawks. At this point, The Undertaker. Yes, The Undertaker, Dwayne Dedmon, is out in Atlanta, so that does open up some things in that front court. It gives us more of an opportunity for the Baptist John Collins to play at the 5, pushing DeAndre Hunter up to the 4, Cam Reddish at the 3. It means Alex Len is likely penciled in as the starter. It gives some valuable minutes to the Wizard Amari Spellman and to Bruno Fernando as well. Of course, much can change here depending on what the Hawks do in free agency, but at this point, the only move that we've really got here from Atlanta, outside of the trade where it was Kent Bazemore for Evan Turner, and Evan Turner is likely going to be the backup point guard on this team. The Undertaker is gone, opening up some minutes and some production there. Alex Len could really be a standard league guy. I think Bruno Fernando is a good sleeper. It improves the minutes outlook for Reddish and Hunter as well. In Boston, of course, heaps has changed. Kyrie and Terry Rozier are both out. The number 1 and number 2 point guards from last season, as well as the starting center Al Horford, they're all gone. In comes Kemba Walker, in comes Enes Kanter. So Kemba, I think Kemba's numbers in Boston, look, the contract is fine. It's a max contract. He didn't want that to stay in Charlotte. The extra money, some debate as to whether they offered that full supermax. I don't believe they did. It's a fine move for Kemba to come in. We all had the idea that Kyrie was leaving. Horford was a bit of a shock, but we sort of found that out about a week or 2 weeks ago that he was gone. So let's just focus on Kemba coming in here. It does open up some minutes for a backup point guard, whether that's Carson Edwards or Tremont Waters. Marcus Smart will play that role a little bit as well, so we'll get some Smart, Jaylen Brown backcourts. But with Brad Wanamaker gone, with Rozier gone as well, there are some backup minutes there for one of those rookies that the Celtics just drafted. Kemba's numbers, I imagine, will be relatively similar to Charlotte. They will drop because the usage, he's not going to be sharing with Marvin Williams and Nick Batum. There's Jason Tatum and Gordon Hayward and Jaylen Brown. So I think we'll probably see a little bit of a decline in value for Kemba in Boston, just comparing the quality of teammates. Maybe a bump in efficiency, maybe an increase in assists as well could be a possibility for Walker. As for Enes Kanter, we know there are always limitations on how many minutes he plays, but there's not in terms of guys who are around on this squad. There's the Rock DJ Robbie Williams as a backup center, and then there's Kanter. So you'd have to imagine mid to high 20s in terms of minutes for Kanter. Elite percentages. His defense improved during the playoffs. He scores, he rebounds. We know all the things that Enes Kanter can do. And it can do well. And in an opportunity like this, where there is very little coming in behind him at this stage, there is a real opportunity for him to come in and be an impact guy and probably a standard league player. In Brooklyn, there's huge changes, of course. Kyrie Irving is in. Kevin Durant is in. They lose D'Angelo Russell, Trevion Graham, Shabazz Napier. DeAndre Jordan is in for God knows what reason. Damari Carroll is out and Ed Davis is out. So I would hope that DeAndre Jordan would slot into the Ed Davis role because he is not very good and his reputation absolutely precedes him because he was bad last season. Now, I do think that they will come in and start him over Jarrett Allen, but it won't be a 34-minute-a-night DeAndre Jordan. It's more going to be a 27, I hope, a 27, 26-minute DeAndre, and maybe he moves into that backup role and Jarrett Allen plays 26. Regardless, this is bad for Jarrett Allen's value, and I don't think he's going to really be too much of a standard league option at this point. With Damari Carroll out, it does open up some things on the wing there. The blue swimmer Alan Crabb is gone as well. Of course, we're going to have Kyrie starting at the 1, Levert at the 2, Joe Harris probably at the 3, but the artist formerly known as Torian Prince is around as well. At power forward, do they start Prince at power forward? I think that might be the way they go, with Harris at the 3, Prince at the 4. So there is there's value for Jana Musa, Rowdy Rodions Kuruks, because we're not expecting Kevin Durant to have too much of an impact this season. Of course, I think this does improve Kyrie Irving's outlook, especially with no Durant there. It puts a little bit of a dampener on Caris LeVert, but he was still going to have to perform alongside Russell for this season. So I think we can expect similar-ish type numbers. It does hurt Spencer Dinwiddie quite a bit as well, because there are going to be less opportunities for Kenny Atkinson to bench Kyrie than there was for him to bench D'Angelo Russell. So I think Spencer, while he will share the court with Kyrie at times, there is still Harris there. There is still Levert there to play those minutes, so he's not going to be up at 30 minutes a night, which limits Spencer Dinwiddie's overall fantasy value. In Charlotte, Kemba Walker is out, Terry Rozier is in, just one of the worst contracts in the NBA. I believe that Terry Rozier won 3 years, about $60 million. He is not good, he can't shoot at all, but he is going to put up stats in Charlotte. There's nobody there to take that role away from him, so he's going to be a draftable guy. He's probably got a risk of being overdrafted just because of his low efficiency, his low field goal percentage, low three-pointers, but he can grab rebounds at a high rate, low assist sort of a guy, but he's going to push into the top 100 range. There's no doubt about that. They also lost Jeremy Lamb and Frank the Tank Kaminsky, so there are a lot of minutes opening up there. That means more for Dwayne Bacon. It means more for PJ Washington as a backup 4-5. In Kaminsky's spot, there's a massive opportunity for Miles Bridges and Malik Monk. With Jeremy Lamb gone, I imagine Bridges will get an opportunity to start, or they could start both Monk at the 2 and Bridges at the 3. Bridges is probably, given how he's played, because Monk has been really struggled throughout the course of his early NBA career, I think at this point we've got to be giving the benefit of the doubt to Bridges as that guy there. In Chicago, Robin Lopez out, Thaddeus Young in. I don't really understand the signing of Thaddeus Young. Their starting power forward is Lauri Markkanen. Their starting center is Wendell Carter Jr. So Young has to be coming in to play a smaller role than he played last season in Indiana. He shouldn't be starting. He shouldn't be playing 30-plus minutes unless the Bulls are going to mistakenly go with Young at the 4 and Markkanen at the 5. That doesn't seem like a great defensive... Young's a really good defender, but Markkanen as a 5, there's no rim protection there, and surely they're not going to be getting 32-year-old or 31-year-old Thaddeus Young in to limit the abilities of Wendell Carter Jr. So I think this takes Thad pretty much out of standard league discussion at this point. Robin Lopez is out. That gives some minutes there for Daniel Gafford as backup centre. They could still bring more guys in. And the interesting one, a sign and trade for Tomas Satoransky. A lot more sign and trades this year, which was something we hadn't really seen in past years for the NBA. Satoransky in, that means that surely Chris Dunn is on the way out. Satoransky, I like him. He should come in, start, play 30 minutes initially. He can play the 1, he can play the 2, he can play the 3. So while he probably will start at point guard, and it might only be for this one season, he's going to get some backup minutes at the 2, backup minutes at the 3 as well. With this really hurts Kobe White. I don't think he's going to be a standard league caliber player this season with Satoransky in, and Dunn is going to be nowhere near that. His value is completely disappeared. The Cavs really haven't done any moves at this point, so let's move on to the Dallas Mavericks. Kelly Olynyk's in, JJ Barea re-signed, Seth Curry returns, Derek Jones Jr. is in, Kristaps Porzingis got that max extension, and Maxi Kleber re-signs as well. So really, the change here, we've got Seth Curry in. I think he's a better player than Tim Hardaway Jr. Barea is not going to play most of this season. So Curry, I think it could be, he's more of a 14-teamer, more of a stream type option. The front court with Kleber, with Olynyk, with Powell is a little crowded in that area, but if we're going to see an Olynyk front court paired alongside Powell and Kleber, you could see 27 to 28 minutes for all three of those guys. And we saw last season that Kleber can have standard league value, Powell can have, and so can Olynyk. But it all comes down to consistency of minutes. If Powell and Olynyk get 30 a night, they both will be standard league type players. We saw that for Cali during his stretch in Miami, and we saw that for Powell at the end of last season, but that still remains to be seen. For Denver, Jamal Murray signed a 5-year max extension, $170 million, while Isaiah Thomas is gone, so not much to really talk about with Denver. In Detroit, Derrick Rose is in, Ish Smith is out, the Duke Wayne Ellington is out, Anthony Tolliver is out, and Maxi Kleber Wrong line. Timmy Frazier is in. So Derek Rowe is going to have an opportunity to battle Reggie Jackson for the starting point guard. I couldn't be less interested in either of those guys for standard leagues at this point. Rosie is best suited as a backup to take those Ish Smith roles, to play alongside Reggie Jackson at times. It does limit the value of perhaps a Kyrie Thomas coming up. It limits the value of maybe the Shark Bruce Brown as well. Baby Shark, just because it means there's going to be more Jackson-Rose combinations there. But Rose is just not a great fantasy player at this point. I think he shot about 12% over his last 15 games from three after starting 50% on his first 30 or 40 games, which was never going to be able to continue. So when you look at Derek Rose's three-point shooting from last season, there is a lot of mirage involved in that. For the Warriors, Kevin Durant is out. Andre Iguodala in one of the biggest shocks of this free agency period. He has gone to Memphis. D'Angelo Russell is in. Nobody saw that coming. Klay Thompson re-signs on the max. Kevon Looney is back, and Jordan Bell. While the Warriors haven't decided whether they're going to match his contract offer from the Timberwolves, given the way they feel about Bell, or seem to feel about Bell, I don't really see them matching that deal. Of course, with KD and Iguodala out, there's a huge opportunity for someone like Jacob Evans to really step up. Jordan Poole as well. Klay Thompson's not going to be there. You're going to have a lot of Steph and D'Angelo backcourt. So I think Russell's value will take a bit of a hit, but he's not playing alongside Klay and KD. It's D'Angelo and Steph. Like that's the offense on this team. So he's still going to get lots of opportunities, and I imagine his value will be relatively similar to Brooklyn, and another 20-point per game season for D'Angelo Russell could be a possibility. It does hurt. Initially when all these injuries happened in Golden State, we looked at Steph and go, he's going to be the number one guy. Like having Russell there now, with who could put up a 30 plus usage percentage as well, takes some of those touches away from Steph. And I have talked about Steph before. It's back when he was the number one player. The big difference between what he's doing now and what he's doing then were the steal numbers, like 2 steals per game versus 1.3, and that's what took him from say 7 to 1. So it wasn't just all about offensive usage, because he still puts up those numbers with KD around. It's just the defensive stuff had dropped off with Curry. So it is going to be interesting to see there. But with no starting three, no backup three, there is some real minute opportunities there in Golden State to see if a guy like Jacob Evans can step up and take some of that role. Especially he played point guard at Summer League last night as well. Interestingly enough, if depending on what they're going to do with Sean Livingston, there could be a backup role there. But of course, there's Russell and Steph on this team also. For Houston, Gerald Green and Austin Rivers both re-signed, so that's just more of the same from last season. In Indiana, big changes. Malcolm Brogdon's in to be the starting point guard. Of course, Darren Collison shockingly retired to go and spend more time with his faith. Apparently, just completely out of the blue decision from Collison. One of the more underrated point guards, but also underrated ship blokes in the league as well, with his conviction for domestic violence. So, yeah, Darren Collison is gone from the NBA. Malcolm Brogdon, the starting point guard, should be a consistent top 100, maybe pushing top 60 fantasy guy for this season. Bojan Bogdanovic is out. The Deuce Young is out. Corey Joseph is out, but Jeremy Lamb comes in. Wes Matthews also out, and Victor Oladipo is going to be out at the start of the season as well. So, at power forward, we're going to have Domantas Sabonis. You're going to have Miles Turner at center with my man Goga Bitadze as the backup center.
Problem with my Gogo-mobile. Gogo-mobile? No, not the dart. Not the dart.
Yes, the dart will likely be that backup center for Indiana from the beginning. And then with Corey Joseph out, Aaron Holiday slides into the backup point guard role. Won't get enough minutes to be a standard league guy, but definitely value does improve now. Starting at the 3, there's still a question mark with Bogdanovic no longer there. We're probably going to have Jeremy Lamb starting at the 2 until Oladipo returns, but there's still an option there at the 3 for somebody to come in from Indiana and stake that claim and really step up with Bogdanovic out. But no clear winner at that position at this point. For the Clippers, Paddy Beverly is back, and they got a steal in Mo Harkless in that trade. Harkless, depending on what happens with the rest of free agency and Kawhi Leonard's decision, Harkless could either have a large role or a much more muted role. At this point, it's him and Danilo Gallinari manning the 3 and the 4 spot, but Harkless is not a very high upside fantasy guy. For the Lakers, they've lost Reggie Bullock, they've lost Mike Muscala, Troy Daniels is in. It is appearing more and more likely that Kawhi will be going to the Lakers, so that's I'm more than happy, actually completely fine with Kawhi making whatever decision he likes. I just wish this wasn't the decision he was going to make, and this could all be proved wrong, but it does appear that Kawhi going to the Lakers seems to be what's going to happen. For Memphis, Iguodala is in, but looks like he will be bought out by the Grizzlies and could end up signing with the Lakers, and there have been some interest expressed by the Rockets as well. He is not a fantasy option guy, while Jonas Valanciunas returns on a 3-year deal to Memphis. This hurts Brandon Clark's value. Valanciunas should be a top 50 guy for this season. maybe next, and it limits Clark to a backup role, a 20-minute or so a night role, and he still could be impactful at times, much like we saw with Mitchell Robinson last season, but I wouldn't be expecting Brandon Clark to be a draftable guy. In Miami, big shake up there. Jimmy Butler is in the general soreness. Joshie Richardson out, Derek Jones Jr. out, Kelly Olynyk out. They also traded Hassan Whiteside to the Portland Trailblazers and got back Myers Leonard. So Goran Dragic could also be gone. There's been talk of him moving, so Justice Winslow likely starting at the 1. Jimmy Butler at the 2-3 type of an area there, and Richardson gone as well. So lots to change in Miami. Jones Jr., a guy they'd liked as well. That starting front court, we're going to have Bam Adebayo absolutely guaranteed. And maybe he's probably going to be a top 70 pick. I think he's probably a top 50 player for next season with no Olynyk or no Whiteside there as well. So that's very, very interesting. Tyler Hero had a good debut at Summer League. Could he be getting some of these minutes that Richardson is or has given up? Now, of course, Butler's taking the majority of those. But if Dragic is out as well, that means that there are more minutes on the wing as Winslow pushes across the point guard, which could give Hero an immediate spot in the rotation. Dion Waiters, God forbid, is still around. A terrible fantasy option, of course. In at Milwaukee, Chrissy Middleton, Brook Lopez are both back. They also lost Malcolm Brogdon. They returned Robin Lopez to reunite. Yeah, reunite. They used to live together. Reunite with his brother to be the backup center. George Hill is back and Wes Matthews is back. So Wes Matthews, I believe, just takes that Malcolm Brogdon starting role. He's not as good as Brogdon, but he's fine as a late round guy. But remember, back in Dallas at the start of last season, he wasn't really providing good fantasy value. Definitely didn't do it with the Knicks, and he was touch and go in Indiana. So to me, he's a low upside late round guy, which is the worst combination of things. Georgie Hill will get that role, spelling Matthews, spelling Bledsoe as well. In Minnesota, they get in Shabazz Napier and Treveon Graham as part of the D'Angelo Russell sign and trade. They also lose Derrick Rose and Taj Gibson, while at this point they've got Jordan Bell in. Bell's got an opportunity to take that Taj Gibson role, though I think Keita Bates-Diop could have an opportunity to take those minutes. But if Bell can get 20 minutes a night as a backup center, or maybe 15 minutes a night behind Karl Anthony Towns, deeper leagues would want to pay some attention. For the Pelicans, JJ Redick is in. Has to be a smaller role for Redick than last season because it's Lonzo Ball and Drew Holiday at the 1 and the 2. So Redick, who was playing 30-plus minutes for the Sixers, surely comes in as like a 27-minute-a-night sort of a player now for the Pelicans. That's going to hurt his value. They lose Julius Randle, predictably as well. Zion Williamson is going to take that role. Of course, they have now lost. Last season, they had Julius Randle, Nikola Mirotic, and Anthony Davis in that front court. All three of those guys have gone. Derek Favors also has gone to the Pelicans. So I think Favors is in for a big season as a starting center next to Zion. Really intrigued. He's going to be, I think, top 60-ish type potential just from a rough estimation. Lord Alfred Payton gone, as well as Lonzo Ball having those starting point guard duties. Frank Jackson still around on this squad, and Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who they drafted. Now for the Knicks, there's so many moving parts for the Knicks. Julius Randle in, Taj Gibson in, Punch Bob Shiplock, Bobby Portis, he is in. They lost Mario Hezonja, DeAndre Jordan. They bring in two shooters, Reggie Bullock and the Duke Wayne Ellington, and also Alfred Payton. So at point guard, I don't know. Alfred Payton, Dennis Smith Jr., Frank Ntilikina. I think we have to assume that Ntilikina is done. Their shooting on this team looks like it could be a disaster outside of Bullock and Ellington, who they brought in. I think that that point guard situation is going to be a mess between Payton and Smith, and it's going to be minutes all over the place because we know that Fizdale is going to be just dicking everybody around at every opportunity that he gets. So that's somewhat of a concern there. And then for the big men, their best player is Mitchell Robinson, their center. So of course they brought in three other big men to play around him. Will they start Julius Randle? I would have to assume so, and Randle can put up numbers. Now, Randle doesn't put up any defensive numbers, but on this Knicks team, he should be getting his assist numbers back up, and he should be a 20 and 10 type of guy. Really top 50 type potential for this season. Portis, not a very good NBA player. Should only be getting backup minutes behind Robinson, and Taj Gibson backup minutes behind Randle, and they shouldn't be fantasy options at this point, but God knows what Fizdale's going to do if he's going to limit Robinson, which is definitely a possibility given how he's performed in the past. Now, with Smith and Payton at point guard, with Randall and Robinson at the 4 and the 5. That means RJ Barrett, Alonzo Trier, Kevin Knox, their young core. One of those guys is going to have to miss out. Is Barrett going to play at the 2? His best position is probably the 3. Kevin Knox, the 4. His best position is probably the 4, but is he outplaying Taj Gibson, Julius Randle, and Bobby Portis to get? Although Portis is more of a 5 at this point, to be fair. So one of these guys is going to lose out, and Knox wouldn't really be a target of any fantasy league of mine because he's so poor, while Barrett is a late round pick. I do think they'll start Barrett at the 2 and Knox at the 3, but so much confusion as to how all these roles are going to pan out with the Knicks. For the Magic, Nikola Vucevic and Terry Ross are back. They also brought back Michael Carter-Williams, who played well as a backup point guard last season, and they also bring in the Chief, Al-Farouq Aminu.
Sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit.
Where he fits is really up in the air. We've got Vooch at centre, Aaron Gordon at the 4, and Johnny Isaac at the 3. Now, Aminu is a 4 at best, so he moves from a starting 4 position on the Blazers to a backup 4 with Orlando, and I would have hoped that they would have played those backup 4 minutes and given them to Johnny Isaac. So I don't really know what Orlando's going for by getting Aminu in here. Surely they don't want him to play at the 3 at the expense of Isaac. He's not going to be a standard league player, so I don't think we need to worry too much about the Chief Al-Farouq Aminu coming in and taking much value, especially from someone like Aaron Gordon. You right? All right, so let's look at the Philadelphia 76ers. Jimmy Butler out, JJ Redick out. Joshy Richardson comes in, so he takes Butler's minutes. He's probably going to lose a bit of value from where he was last season, just with Simmons and Embiid and Harris, and of course Al Horford now in Philadelphia. So you'd imagine their starting lineup is going to be Simmons, Richardson, Toby Harris, Al Horford, and Joel Embiid. I think this signing of Horford is a bit of a limitation on Embiid as well. Probably more minutes management with Horford around, probably some more load management in terms of games off. It's going to make it harder to take Embiid in the first round with all these other options. At least gives them a capable big man, which they didn't have last season. Mike Scott and Kyle O'Quinn also. Mike Scott returned, and the Cock Monster, he joined Philadelphia to be that backup center, which does give another opportunity for Embiid to rest sometimes. We know that when Cock does get minutes, he tends to produce, although last season he struggled, but this could be an opportunity for him on those nights, playing alongside Horford for some opportunity. In Portland, a lot of decisions being made there. The Chief and Mo Harkless both gone. The starting 3 and the 4 are out. Hassan Whiteside comes in almost assuredly to be the starting centre. These cowards should have just gone with Zach Collins, but they've gone with Whiteside instead. We know what Whiteside can do, so he's going to be a viable fantasy option, just depending on how you want to structure your team. Myers Leonard's gone, so that gives more minutes to Zach Collins as the backup there. They also bring in Anthony Tolliver to play some minutes at the 4. They're going to need someone at the 4 because, as I said, they lost their starting 4 and 3. Now, I don't know if they're going to go with Zach Collins alongside Whiteside in that starting lineup. I guess that's a possibility. They also brought in Mario Hezonja. Now, I was excited to see how the Knicks used Hezonja. It was the Knicks, so I shouldn't have been excited, but I was, and they completely screwed that up last season. But there's an opportunity here with both Harkless and Aminu gone. Hezonja can come in and maybe find a role. Just a name to watch at this point. They also brought back Rocket Rodney Hood, who, as I choked to death, who is going to come in and flash potential and in the end up doing nothing. Really just a deeper league sort of a player. They also lose Seth Curry, which hurts this team's overall depth. But getting Kent Bazemore in can be a help. I don't think Bazemore is really going to be any sort of a standard league guy. But again, there is that opening with Harkless gone, so maybe Bazemore can step into that role. In Phoenix, ravishing Rick Rubio. He is in as the starting point guard. Of course, this kills D'Anthony Melton, Elie Okobo, and Tyler Johnson. Rubio's numbers, his assist numbers, were well down in Utah. I think they can bump back to 7 or 8. I think this might hurt Devin Booker's assist numbers a little bit as well. A little bit of a curious decision to bring Rubio in, and maybe a bit of an overpay. And I love Ricky Rubio. Just maybe a little bit too high of a payment for Ravishing. But he is in. Troy Daniels is out, means nothing. Rashawn Holmes is out. So that opens up some backup minutes there at centre, and they brought in Frank the Tank Kaminsky. Hopefully he's not the guy that they think is going to play those backup minutes at centre there, because he struggles quite a bit, but that does limit. Holmes was that great per minute guy that we all know about. Getting those 20 minutes a night could provide value. That's not going to be a threat to DeAndre Ayton any longer. In Sacramento, Harrison Barnes, the pencil, Barnesy. He is back on a horrible overpay, and he can, well, people don't want to come to Sacramento. It's hard to find a 3-and-D wing. Well, you know what they went and did? They went and found a 3-and-D wing in Trevor Ariza at half the price. Barnes isn't that good. It's not worth paying this guy $20+ million a year for the next 4 seasons just because he wanted to come back. Play Bogdan Bogdanovic there. Barnes isn't a 3, he's a 4, but you're squeezing him into the 3. Bogdanovic isn't a 3, he's a 2, but you play them up. And then you got Ariza in 2 years, $20 million, who's going to come in and be a backup here, play backup 3, play backup 4 behind Marvin Bagley. Some curious decisions, but it is the Kings. They also brought in The Undertaker, Dwayne Dedmon, and Richaun Holmes, so that's going to be their center rotation, you'd guess, meaning that Marvin Bagley and Harry Giles both won't be playing their preferred position, which is, again, curious decision making. I want to see Marv and Harry together. They're both better as centers, but now we're going to be getting Bagley as a 4, Giles as a 4 with Dedmon and Holmes as the centre, making Barnes almost exclusively a 3. Some just curious positional decision making there by the Kings. Corey Joseph comes in to be a backup point guard behind De'Aaron Fox. He's one of the worst fantasy per minute producers anyway, and the opportunity is not going to be very large for him here in Sacramento. In San Antonio, Rudy Gay is back, but they also brought in Damari Carroll. That helps them. They needed depth on the wing. Carroll's not going to be too much of a fantasy impact guy. Toronto brings in Matt Thomas from the EuroLeague, an excellent shooter, just providing some value on the wings there, but more going to be a 3-point streamer, if at all. Utah loses Rubio and Favors and brings in Bojan Bogdanovic, So Bogdanovic replaces Favors, pushes into that starting power forward role. Hull Neto got waived. Ed Davis comes in to be the backup center, taking some of those Derek Favors minutes as well. And with Rubio out, we know, of course, Mike Conley is the starting point guard in Utah now. For Washington, Tom Bryant re-signed, so he looks to be the starting centre, although Dwight Howard is healthy. Isaiah Thomas and Ish Smith have both been signed, and with the loss of Tomas Satoransky, those guys are going to be battling for the starting point guard gig. Regardless of who wins the position, I can't see either of them being 33-minute-a-night sort of players. Maybe it's going to be 28. Thomas has sucked for 2 years. That hip has completely ruined him, whereas Ish Smith just has really limitations on his game. They could just be stream guys, but not players I'm overly interested in targeting, while Punch Bob is gone as well. So minutes in that front court. Ariza out there as well. So there are minutes in that front court for guys like Troy Brown to step up and be the starting small forward on this Wizards team. The other decision, Nikola Mirotic moving over to play back in Barcelona, so another surprise name along with Collison, out of free agency. That'll do it for my initial wrap-up of NBA free agency, coming to you live from San Francisco. Guys, I'll be back later in the week with more Summer League talk and more free agency news. Guys, make sure you're following me on Twitter at redrock_Beeble. Subscribe to this podcast, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and on Spotify. Give me a 5-star review. That'd be fantastic. And on YouTube, give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, hit that bell. You know all the good stuff you can do to help this show out. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya. Reggie Bullock.